Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, wherever you are. My name's Jennifer. We are about to kick off today's webinar, just allowing our participants to get into the room, and then we'll kick it off shortly. Thank you. If you've just joined us, we're just allowing all of our participants to come into the room. The number is climbing, and we're super excited to share our stories and welcome you to our panel discussion today. We'll be beginning in probably 30 seconds. They don't care where they land, they just want to land. Excellent. We're going to go ahead and begin. We are recording today's session. We want to officially welcome you. Today is a kickoff to the year, starting January 14th, 2026. And so I'm joined by myself, Jennifer Henley, COO of NAS Recruitment. We serve as a leading employment brand and marketing firm across the agencies to support healthcare organizations and alike across the United States. I'm also joined with Courtney, who will also serve as a co-moderator today, and we'll pass that over in just a moment. But I want to just go over a few logistics before we dive in today and you meet our panelists and we start our lovely discussion. I think first and foremost is just a couple logistics. You came here because you're eager and interested to learn more about what did we all learn last year and where are we going to go forward in 2026. We're super glad that you took the time to enjoy your lunch hour, I hope, or your post-morning coffee to talk with us and to learn from the industry leaders. We're honored to have Andrea, Dominique, Tracy, and Andrea to all join us to share their stories, and Barb to talk through exactly what they've learned and where to prepare for the future. So thank you again for them to give us their time and effort. And we encourage you to network and reach out afterwards. During the session, we will be recording it. Everyone here that has joined will get a copy of the recording, the presentation slides. They're minimal at best. It's an opportunity for us to coordinate and discuss with each of you guys, but nonetheless, you'll get that. And then there's a brief 3-question survey at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and just continue the presentation. So as I said, here's we are, and I'll go ahead and pass it to you, Courtney.
Thank you, Jen. Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney Fruoff, soon to be Whitener. I am one of the Practice Match client account managers here. Recently, I have become the provider recruitment and solutions manager here. And I believe I've been here about 10 years now. Prior to Practice Match, I did recruit nurses, APPs, and physicians at third-party firms. But as you know, Practice Match is your ultimate provider recruitment and marketing toolbox. We have all of those physician provider profiles that you are seeking to recruit with multiple different outreach and marketing tactics. So, what I would like to do next is have these panelists introduce themselves. This is a powerhouse group here. Absolutely phenomenal. I am proud and honored to call these ladies my partners, mentors, and my friends. So take it away. Barb, we'll start with you.
Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We're excited to be here today. My name is Barb Martin. I serve as the executive director of our physician and APP recruitment team here at Mercy. Our small but mighty team supports a medical staff of 5,600 across Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma. I've been in recruitment over 20 years, but have been leading this team here at Mercy since 2021. Thank you.
Andrea, go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited just to be part of this panelist group today. I hope that you'll all learn something that you can take back to your teams just to carry you into this new year. But I'm Andrea Leland. I'm the System Vice President for Provider Services at Dartmouth Health. where I have been for just over 21 years, which I know is shocking because I'm only 29. And it's been really a pleasure for me to be in multiple roles, which have kind of culminated in this new role that I serve in now, which is leading a provider services division in which I oversee provider, which is physician and APP recruitment, executive recruitment, and compensation, and immigration, which you all know has been a really exciting area over the last couple of years. So thanks again for having me today.
I guess I'm next. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for having me today. My name is Dominique Alds. I'm the Director of Provider Recruitment and Network Development for Metro Health. I've been in provider recruitment for about 18 years. And if you're not familiar with Metro Health, we're a public academic health system in Cleveland, Ohio. We are a mission-driven county hospital serving the underserved community in Cuyahoga County. On my team, I have 3 provider recruiters, a provider recruitment coordinator, and physician liaison that does our internal provider networking. So look forward to a great discussion today.
Hello there. I'm Tracy Suber, and it's a pleasure to be here today. I feel like I'm the newbie to the group here. I hope I have something that I can offer, though. I am Vice President of Education and Talent Acquisition for Phoebe Putney Health System. We are located in Southwest Georgia, so I kind of bring more of a, I guess, probably a rural perspective to the conversation. But I am a nurse, and so I have not been in recruitment very long. I transitioned to this role and am doing this in addition to my education duties as well. But I'm really excited about the transition. It's been wonderful. I actually picked this up in October. I was largely responsible for building our partnerships into our workforce, building the pipeline with our school partners. And so we have a small team of talent acquisition partners who are mighty, and I think many of them are on the call. And so as I speak today, I'm going to be speaking with a collective voice of our team here in Southwest Georgia. But it's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, and just a quick view of our agenda here. We are really excited to hear what the ladies have to say regarding how their workflow amongst their teams has changed, just with everything they've experienced in 2025, along with their challenges, some bottlenecks, lessons learned. We'll also talk about our tools, tech, and working smarter and not harder. And of course, always looking to the future and making sure that we apply everything we've learned. So, very, very excited to hear from the ladies here. Okay, I think I'm taking this slide too.
Yeah,
Thank you
Kirsten.
guys. Okay, so as you all know, this isn't anything new. The physician pipeline and shortage continues to increase. So the AAMC is now projecting a national shortfall of up to 86,000 physicians by 2036. And I know that sounds like it's far away, but really time is just flying. It's going pretty quickly. So the greatest pressure that we're seeing is in the primary care realm and some select specialties that you see here. So as far as those 2025 match set records, we have a little over 43,000 residency positions. And the amount of physicians is going down while our needs are going up. We're seeing less and less applicants, so that's supply versus demand. Supply is going down, demand is going up. We're being asked to do more with less, of course. And as as time goes, we're seeing our challenges, our time to fill, that continues to increase. So average time to fill has stretched to about 125 days for primary care roles and up to 135 days for certain niche specialties, which I personally feel that that's being generous. I think those days can turn into years. So sometimes we see our needs that have been open for 1, 2, 3 years, with our rural positions taking even longer. So these persistent shortages, plus that burnout that our providers are experiencing and that turnover, means that the physician labor market remains highly, highly competitive and volatile going into 2026. APPs as well. These now account for roughly 41% of providers in the US physician practices, which this trend continues where we are placing more APPs, hiring more APPs versus physicians. Typically, they tend to cost a little less versus those physicians. And our hospitals, our health systems are adopting these team-based care models. So again, that pressure, that workforce pressure amongst physician and APP hiring, it just continues on. So 50% of physicians do report feeling burnt out in 2025, which is not good. This is down from the pandemic peaks around the 2025 peak, but it's still a major driver of early retirement as well as turnover. All right. So, everyone on the call, we have a little poll for you guys. So, you guys can participate. I believe Hannah is going to launch this poll. So, you're going to see a question pop up on your screen here. We would love to hear from you all. Which shift had the biggest impact on your healthcare recruitment strategy in 2025? And I know these could have all been part of it, but just try to choose which one had the biggest impact on you and your strategy. Recruiter burnout and retention challenges, increased provider expectations such as flexibility, speed, experience, technology overload and need for smarter automation, or budget pressures and productivity demands. We'll give you a minute to participate here.
I see some results.
Okay,
You want to go over those, Courtney?
yes.
Yeah.
The results are coming in. So far, it looks like budget pressures and productivity demands is taking the lead, 35%, followed by increased provider expectations,
Mm.
recruiter burnout and retention challenges, last but not least, tech overload.
All right.
Okay, the 2025 experience. So we will look back here. When you all do look back at 2025, what stands out as the defining experience or turning point for your team this year? And we'll have everyone answer this. So, ladies, whoever wants to answer first, feel free.
I'm happy to jump in. So when I really think back to over the last year, I don't know that there was one big moment for us or a defining turning point. I think it was really a mindset shift. You know, we realized that resilience and influence weren't just nice to have skills. They were really core competencies for our team. And I'm sure that resonates with most of you on the call and with my colleagues here. You know, there were constant pressures. We had market volatility. We had heightened physician expectations. There were operational constraints, right, with financial and budget pressures. And our leaders really wanted answers faster. There were demands on our teams. But what stood out really were the teams who thrived weren't just executing searches well. They were the ones who could stay steady despite all of these challenges that were coming at us. And our influence really helped those decisions have upward momentum. And so that pushed us as leaders to really intentionally build personal resiliency and to position ourselves as trusted business partners. So we stopped being reactive to every fire and we started showing up with data, with perspective, with clear recommendations, even when the answer wasn't always easy or it wasn't popular. And that shift really changed the way that our stakeholders engaged with us. Our conversations shifted from how are we going to fill this role to help us think through workforce strategy. And that fundamentally elevated our role as recruitment teams. And so I think 2025 was the year that we realized that resilience and influence, not just execution, really defined our success. And that becoming trusted business partners was the only way that we were going to navigate that uncertainty.
I love that, Andrea. Resilience, I really think, was as a highlight of much of anything in healthcare recruiting, specifically provider, but also non-provider. Really, how are we doing? How are we doing with more with less? And going back to the poll that was put up there as far as technology overload, I think specifically for our team, AI has been increasingly in the news, and what can we do and what AI is going to do? It's going to take away our roles. It's going to take away the pieces. And there's this tendency to, oh, this is new and this is better. And what does this look like? And really for us, a defining moment within provider recruitment here at Mercy was, okay, what do we have? How do we look at the technologies that we have? Are we optimizing what we have? And then not keeping just within HR, but also working with our IT department, our Mercy Technology Services, and saying, hey, we do some amazing things with automation in patient care and patient data. Is there an opportunity with our spreadsheets upon spreadsheets and Teams channels to align this work? And just automate some of the manual processes. So to Andrea's point, what the computers and what AI can't do is the compassion and the empathy and the understanding and articulation and discernment that turns a business plan into an executable recruitment strategy.
Yeah, I'll go next. So, one of the big things for us, on the poll, everybody is feeling budget constraints, right? I think that ended up being like the top leading answer. And we certainly have felt that here. We have a large use of contract labor. And so for us, we have been referring to the last 6 months, even into this year, as the year of labor. And that's kind of how we refer to it. And so we developed in August of 25 a rapid task force. It was called a rapid response task force, and it was in partnership with our HR team and our nursing leadership team. And the idea is let's get all the key players in the room and let's talk about the things that we can put in place and do it quickly, and hopefully see some return. And we've been doing that since August, and that task force has been meeting every other week. We had small subgroups that were formed as a result of that. So we had one group looking at the hiring process. We had one looking at awards and recognition, one looking at comp and benefits, professional growth and career opportunities, leadership and engagement, I think I said career growth, marketing, and then specifically one whole group looking at what metrics are going to be tied to each one of those subgroups. Because, gone are the days where we can just, talk about it. We need to have some measurable tactics that we can move on. And similar to what, the other panelists had said, is taking more of an active role as a partner, a recruiter, is when you are part of making those decisions and you can see the money that's being spent on the heavy contract labor, then it certainly makes you feel a little bit more pressure to perform and to accomplish and achieve those metrics. And so we're having some early success on that. Obviously, that task force is still going on. And so I may refer to that, but that's something that's carrying on into 26. But it's been a huge partnership with all parties at our health system.
I guess that that leaves it up to me, and I think our defining experience was quite different, though it has a lot of similarities to the things mentioned in a way of doing more with less and budget. In 2025, for the first time, we experienced layoffs with our system, and so unfortunately, we did have to lay off a recruiter on my team, which was really challenging. I think, it was upsetting. It caused everybody to kind of have to shift and take on more work, doing more with less people, and also budget constraints. But my team really stepped it up. They did such a great job, and I think even became stronger in their role because of it. And we really, I think, even built some stronger partnerships with the departments that we work with by really, getting organized, working as a team and supporting each other. And I really just can't say enough about what a great team I have and how well everybody works together. It was difficult to lose a member of our team, but we 6 months later, everybody is doing great and working really hard. And I think the team dynamic is really what I can focus on of 2025 and moving forward in 2026.
Wonderful. So, just to summarize, I am hearing a lot of taking a step back, analyzing our processes, really looking at our strategy, and buttoning up those processes where we can. I'm hearing getting organized. Resilience in our industry is huge. I know this is a tough job. We get a lot of no's. So how can we come back from that and improve upon our work? And of course, working with what we have. Are we optimizing our tools? Are we optimizing our resources at our own organization? Barb had mentioned working with her tech team. But you guys have marketing teams. You have, I'm sure, other HR resources, your stakeholders, your leadership. How can you also use them as resources and tools? Wonderful. All right, next question. Team realities and changing workflows. How did your team's priorities or workflows evolve throughout last year? And what changed in the way your team works? So I have a note for myself. It looks like Barb, Tracy, and Dominique, you all were open to speaking on this. So whoever wants to take it away.
I'll
Happy
jump
to
in.
get us.
I was going to say, you want me to jump in?
Go ahead, Tracy.
Okay. Has anybody heard of this thing called Workday? Workday, we actually implemented, I think like a year ago, and so all of 2025 was Workday, and so we Workday is wonderful, but it's certainly when you're working that process. And again, as I mentioned in my intro, I came into this role in October. I was on the leader side, dealing with Workday. So then coming over now and seeing the back behind the scenes and all of the details required, the analytics behind it, all of the detail that has to go into all of those questions that you're asking when you work through the process. So Workday was certainly one of those changing workflows for our team. And we are now at a point, probably about 2 or 3 months ago, probably 7 or 8 months into that, using it. We've had to kind of go back and do some process mapping to really find out really fine tune, what's working, what do we need more detail to, what do we need to change. And so we did that, I think maybe in October or November, our team did, and worked with our continuous improvement team here at the hospital to work through those process issues. And so now we're kind of going back and trying to refine and retune that detail. But there's a lot of good things to come with it. I definitely see the positive, but I would say that's one of our workflow challenges that we had for 25.
As a system that just went live with Workday recruiting November 17th of 2025, I can echo the sentiments with Workday recruiting and process mapping and the resilience, the resilience that we're talking about through here. Defining really what changed how our team worked this year, how specifically our provider recruitment team worked. There was a far deeper level of engagement with our operations team, to not just, hey, this is the position that we have open, but with some senior leadership changes, there was a heavy focus on making sure that our recruiters understand what goes into the productivity metrics. So along with the alignment of our what we consider brand standards. So when we're looking at, it used to be there is a discernment process for requisitions, but now it's okay, where are our partners? Where do we look regionally from this productivity? Where do we have capacity that is unused so that we can better serve our patients in the region? And I would say probably we were getting to that place before 2025, but in February of 2025, so almost a year now, there was heavy discussion as far as dashboards, recruiters understanding not just the types of procedures and what the group felt like and what the expectations were and what the compensation, but how this position ties into our referral base, our new panel, our new patient base, and what we saw over the course of the year by the recruiters asking questions and operators asking questions, we saw a much better alignment and understanding as and the right questions to ask so that recruiters were more well informed when they were talking to candidates. So we were finding a higher level of engagement at the time of pass off and handoff to hiring leaders, because the recruiters, when the physicians were asking about the productivity or asking about RVUs, there was a stronger correlation of the understanding. And so we felt like candidates were more prepared and frankly more excited when they were handed to the operational leaders, because they had a great base so they could get into that clinician to clinician discussion. And we really look forward to just continuing that bond and that growth and that education on both sides.
That's great. Anyone else?
I think most of what I shared about having to lay off a recruiter, and obviously that shifts the changing workflows within the team, and everybody kind of taking on that recruitment. But I think the biggest change too with budget and going through having some site closures and consolidating some of the sites that were close to each other was seen in primary care. So we had to kind of put things on hold in primary care recruitment, and still wanted to keep a pipeline and keep candidates warm while trying to figure out when we would know what sites we were hiring them into. And for any of you who have primary care recruitment, it's a challenge even when you do know what sites you're looking for. So when you put that on hold and you're still trying to keep candidates warm, trying to shift that flow was a challenge, and we definitely worked through it, and will continue to do so in 2026.
Wonderful. So a couple common denominators I'm noticing in your answers here. Metrics. So applying an ATS to our recruitment strategy, we definitely need to be measuring our KPIs. and communication with other departments. So Barb talked about working with the operations team. When your recruitment team here's the why. Why do we need this opening? Well, tell me about it. It's hard to recruit and source for an opportunity if you don't know the details and you don't really know the why. So being able to team up with the operations and have that insight and also feel like you have that sense of autonomy and you really are part of the team, that's huge. And it allows the recruiters to tee up the candidate for the operations team or whoever's in next in line to speak with that candidate. Wonderful. Thank you, ladies. Provider expectations and candidate behavior. How would you describe the candidates you engaged with in 2025? Did their needs, motivations, or expectations shift in any notable way? This will be interesting to hear. Andrea, I know you were open to speaking on this, so I'm going to pass you the mic.
Okay. Well, I think we can all agree that it's a totally different ball game out there. And, physician candidates are way more empowered and more selective than we've ever seen, right? They're not just choosing between one or two options anymore. They have multiple offers and options on the table. So that shifts the dynamic now. We're not just selling a role to them, we're differentiating an experience really for them when they come to interview. And so speed now becomes table stakes, and agility and authenticity are really the differentiators, I think, when you have a candidate coming to your organization. And so for us, we're really focused on, making faster decisions. And I'm part of an academic health organization, and I think we can all agree that we don't move very fast. So we're trying really hard to help our stakeholders understand that, we really need to kind of help you move along the process. I know you want to interview this candidate who can't come for 6 weeks, but you've got this great candidate right now and we want you to make a decision. So speed becomes kind of our priority, and we try to help move things along. Having transparent compensation conversations. I know Barb kind of hit on this, but we're training our recruiters to really understand that operational expertise, to understand those productivity models. And this is great for me because I oversee compensation in my role too, in addition to recruitment. So I can help build that bridge between these teams to really understand what's the volume look like in this dermatology practice. What is the opportunity for earning so that we can really help them to understand their potential for earning. They might come in on a guarantee, but here's the opportunity once you come off guarantee. And our goal is to get you off that guarantee as soon as possible. So we really try to help provide as much information to get them excited about the practice. They have more leverage and less patience than ever before. That's the candidate we're seeing now in 2025 and now going into 2026. They want to understand what are those call expectations? What are the incentives? They want clarity on workload upfront. They want that actually in that first screening conversation. They don't want to wait until they talk to the clinician or until they come on site. So the more information that our teams are equipped to provide them from that first interaction, the better things are going to go. So we have really revamped our intake session. We won't even post a position now until our recruiter meets with that hiring manager, and we gather every detail possible to be able to have every answer that we know the candidates are going to throw at us. I think the other thing too that we've learned is that our candidates aren't just evaluating jobs, they're evaluating leadership, culture, sustainability. They want to know, will I be supported? Will my time be respected? Can I practice the way I was trained to practice? They want a really clear picture of what life is going to look like in the role. And so the more that we can help to provide an ideal, authentic picture of that to them, the more they're going to be drawn in, and we're going to differentiate ourselves as an organization that they're going to be interested in that second conversation. and then in coming to interview. And so it's really important, I think, that we understand that the name of the game has changed, and we can differentiate ourselves by being as informed as possible up front and providing as much information about the practice and having our recruiters really become that operational expert as much as possible. And so I think, Barb, you spoke to that a lot, which was a nice tee up for my answer here. So thank you.
Any other thoughts to add? Wonderful. So, what I'm hearing here, authenticity and transparency are extremely important. I know that compensation is important to our candidates, but our culture, our organization, even our location, these are things that the recruitment team, no matter where you are, what your role is on the recruitment team, you need to be able to showcase that as well. I talk to recruiters, managers, directors all day, every day, and I ask you to sell me your opportunity, sell me your location. And I can tell when they have that passion, when you all have that passion for your mission, your vision, your location, what you guys actually do at the end of the day, that goes a long way. And I know I'm not a physician, but it'll go a long way with them as well. So definitely keep that in mind.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to turn the corner just a bit. We have about 3 additional questions and a takeaway. And I'd like to share my screen again, just with strategies, wins, and lessons learned. So this is an opportunity to really capitalize on some of the things we've heard. We've heard about new workflows, candidate behavior, things that you may or may not have anticipated that you managed and approached and worked through in 2025. But I'd love to know what worked better than expected. We all have high goals. In fact, most of us have already thrown our resolutions to the wind about 5 days ago. But as we're in 2025, I'd love to know like what worked better than expected. Let's think positive. I'm sure we all had some failures too, but what worked well and what made it successful? And so I would like to start with you, Tracy. I know you talked a little bit about using a few different tools that I will talk about next, but I'd love to hear from you there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key here is we have to be willing to think outside the box. And I know when we were preparing for this panel, we talked also about you think outside the box, and sometimes you get a lot of really great ideas and tools,
Mhm.
and it may be too much, and you have to go back to the basics, right? So I think it's constantly, as a leader in this world, looking at what's out there, what's available, how do we maximize, the resources? But also look, if it's not working, then let's regroup. And I think it's really important to take time to pause and reflect on that and pivot if you need to. And so I do feel like that kind of occurred for us in 2025. We did have a change in leadership. We had a change in structure. With me being new coming in, we kind of took time to pause and stop and think through some of what was working, what wasn't. In terms of the tool, I know I think that might be the next question. I'll just kind of throw it in while I have the mic. Surprisingly so was something as simple, and many of you might be using text, but we found some tremendous strides late this year with text options because our candidates seem to respond better via text than they did by traditional means. And so I know that seems simple, but it's not always simple because that requires ways to send messaging out. And when you have a ton of different candidates, how do you do that and be efficient? And is it your personal cell phone? Is it, a work cell phone? Is it all these things? But so there's a lot of things that go with that. But we had tremendous success with our new graduate pipeline this fall with a campaign that was done largely by text. So I'll pause there.
Yeah, I just want to echo something real quick that we just came off the heels of like candidate expectations, and I think the big thing is pivoting and all the things, but listening. You clearly listened that you have a variety of disciplines, and this is their preferred method of communication. So it may sound simple, but by listening and executing, you're probably reaching and engaging deeper than you ever did before. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Anyone else? Dominic, I think you want to talk a little about social media and the use of that.
Yeah, I'm happy to mention that. Last year we tried to increase our social media, especially for our APP recruitment. For our physician recruitment, we do, obviously a national search and a lot of different avenues for advertising. But when it comes to our APPs, it's more local. So we did some video ads and some picture ads to use on social media. So that was definitely a nice addition to our advertising for the APPs. Something I didn't mention, but I thought of after our meeting, and goes kind of more along the lines of the physician shortage information. In 2025, I've been putting a lot of thought into all those alarming physician shortage numbers and percentages, and thinking a little bit more of what we're doing for provider retention.
Mm-hmm.
So last year I put together a provider retention committee to help brainstorm and come up with a provider retention strategy. So we've been working on it for about 10 months or so and are working on kicking that off in 2026. And a big part of that is also a provider mentorship program. So I'll definitely have my hands full trying to roll out both of those initiatives this quarter. And hopefully next year we'll have more to share on its successes.
That sounds exciting and certainly needed.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Of course. Anything else that the team would like to share? And I know there's some live questions that are happening as well, some Q&A. So if able, pop in there. We'll answer as quick as possible. If we don't, we can always summarize. All right, this is the drum roll. I know we dropped a bomb with Workday, but we also want to make sure that technology is everywhere. It's abundant. You either have too many, too few. But it's also, I love some of the answers I received from the panelists recently, and it's really about like leveraging what you do have and things of that nature. So it doesn't always have to feel like less is more. But I'd like to start with you, Andrea. You had a really shining moment with regards to how you're leveraging technology, and I think everybody can add to this one as well. But I'd like to kick it off to you first.
Yeah, I wish I had the budget to hire another recruiter just to manage our locums and our contingent labor force because our spend was over 30 million last year in the system. But our recruiters manage all of the locums, and it's a little bit of a job dissatisfier for them. I think most of you can probably relate that for those of you that have your teams managing this, it's a lot to manage all the presents that come in and open the needs and to pass those on. And so my manager and I, Julie Hamplin, we were trying to really think about how we could better utilize the resources that we already have. And so Julie came up with this really great idea. Let's use our applicant tracking system as a way to manage all of the presents and really use the technology that we already have. So we use iCIMS. And so we set up iCIMS and kind of created our own internal vendor management system. So we're using iCIMS as a VMS, and we just have a handful of preferred vendors that we work with. And now they're presenting all of our locum candidates through iCIMS. We open up the ask, we push it out through the system, and they present all of the candidates through the system. The great thing about this is it presents everybody in a consistent format. It allows us to track them through that system. And so it doesn't matter if that recruiter is out sick, if there's turnover with our recruiters, we have a permanent record. When we go to name clear too, they're in the system. It also allows us when we decide to place that locums provider to automate all of their onboarding. We can have them sign off on their attestations for their background check, start their occupational medicine clearances. We can send the notification to the medical staff office. All of these things we used to do manually, and we would just have so much email noise, and it really was a dissatisfier for our onboarders, for our recruiters. And then when we know that looking ahead, it creates a future talent pipeline. So once that ownership period ends, we already have qualified providers in the system who know our organization, and we can consider them for permanent roles. So we're really excited that we now have built a process that's efficient, that allows us to use a technology that we're already paying for. We're working smarter, not harder, and it didn't cost us a penny. And so it's kind of a win-win for us. And it was a really great strategy that we are about, I think, 6 months, 7 months in, and really excited just to continue to see how that evolves for us and becomes more efficient in the future. So it was great.
That's wonderful. I think one follow-up to the question was shared was like, how does your team use technology and data? And I'd love to just hear from everyone else too, a little bit about like, what data are you capturing and are you, and how do you leverage that? Are you bringing that to the table with leaders to set expectations? I heard a little bit of that in the beginning, but if anyone want to add to that working smarter with data, I'd love to hear it.
I'll just mention we're building dashboards currently, and so that is something that's very important because you have to be able to have that to be able to show what you're doing. So that's in process now. We're actually able to use Workday to do some of that, and so that's going on in the background. And we're excited about the possibilities of us all being on the same page as we look at data. And so that we can better understand where we're at and then what our goals are moving forward. Just another plug I wanted to put in if you, and I don't work for this company, so just disclaimer here. But I did want to mention Spark Hire. I had mentioned that to the team yesterday when we were talking. And if you haven't checked that out, it's something really, it's a cool tool to use to vet candidates. And it's a video. Basically, you can set up questions and a time limit and send it to the candidate and see how they respond kind of in real time to questions. And it's been very helpful, like 5 minutes or less. And you can really get a snapshot of a candidate quickly. So I did want to put that out there. That's a good tool that I encourage you to check out.
Excellent. I did write that down. Thank you. Barb, did you want to mention something about the newsletter?
Yeah, so I think,
Yeah.
well, a couple of
A couple
things. So I
things,
think
yeah.
a couple of things I mentioned, partnering with your IT team. So we have a good number of people on here, and I think sometimes our internal resources, when we're thinking about budgets and doing more with less resources or optimizing the time of our team, one of the big things from a process perspective, those of you who are familiar with FRIDA, collective eye roll. So those of you that are familiar with Frida, it's a generally a manual process. It very much changes, and you can get the information. It's not necessarily hard, but we had our IT team and a specialist on our team that actually worked together with some RPA to automate that process. So what used to take hours or days to pull programs and programs directors and addresses, and it is now a very abridged process. And so that's been huge. It was an optimization of internal resources with some processes we had aligned outside of HR. And then in keeping, we've been talking about Workday, we've been talking about ISOMs, but really when we think about optimizing the relationships we have, I really encourage you to partner with your vendors and to ask the questions and say, hey, listen, are there healthcare organizations that are my size that are having better read rates? How can we interpret this data? Do you have suggestions? Or sometimes the hard conversations. Hey, I'm seeing better read rates on another platform or with another tool or technology. How can we partner? And one of the things in 2025 that has really is your vendor partners. So I think somebody asked in the chat, like which ones are the best? What would you recommend, or what are the best platforms? And I get that question all the time. And I think 2025, and even now as we're in 2026, is reflection on, hey, you have all these coming at you saying, hey, this is what we can do for you, but ask the questions. If you see something on another platform that you think might be on another, so we've seen a lot of movement with our vendor partners this year by saying, hey, I would really love to see this. So it comes down to not just the process streamlining, process optimization, but also optimizing the tools that you have. And hey, I know we've had this tool for so very long, but are we actually using it to its potential? Yeah, thanks, Jen.
I love it. We're all taking this accountability. It's wonderful. And it's good. I mean, it's not always about spending more, right? It's about really looking in and identifying what works. Perfect. All right. Well, we can't we have about 10 minutes and I want to end with kind of that looking ahead. This is what's most important. Like, what did we all learn collectively? Such a variety of responses, but a lot of commonality. Everyone seems so humble and eager to learn and adjust and be, and nimble. I've heard pivot and reflecting. These are great things, and it's what makes our panelists so incredible. I'm going to allow Hannah to launch our second and final poll, which is now just looking ahead. So the question here is, where is your talent acquisition focusing the most energy this year? 4 responses. 1, retaining and upskilling your team, recruiters. Improving the provider experience and engagement. 3, optimizing your tech stack and workflows. Or 4, redefining metrics, goals, and expectations. And again, I'm sure some of you would love to have that all the above. But if you had to pick one, what would be your focus for the most energy this year? We'll launch that poll and then give you some results. And as panelists, we can't vote, so I'm eager to see what you say. Wow. All right. 50% of you, so that's half of you taking the poll, are focusing on improving provider experience and engagement. One of the top things we spoke about when we regrouped them this afternoon. Second to that is 22% in alignment with metrics, but optimizing that tech stack, workflows, redefining metrics, goals, and expectations. So really solid responses. So it sounds like everyone is here is really focused on that experience of the provider. Nice job. All right. We'll have some results to these polls and include that in our takeaway. All right. So looking ahead, we're going to look ahead, right? So 2025 is in the rear view. What trends do you see accelerating and where do you want to double down or perhaps deliberately pull back to stay ahead this year?
I think speaking to the overwhelming response on the improving the experience and engagement of the providers, I think one of the biggest things is there is an unsexy part of recruitment that is processes. And so thinking about, thinking about what your interview day looks like, making sure that when you are bringing someone on board, what does that feel like for them? What does that look like for them? And sometimes everyone gets so caught up in the urgency. I saw those comments as well. Everyone gets so caught up in the urgency that we lose sight of what does that white glove, red carpet experience look like? And those processes are foundational to what you're seeking as far as improving the experience and engagement. When you're bringing a provider on site for a site visit, what does that look like? All the way down to the thank you notes. What does that look like? And it really is, it's that part that sometimes feels it's not exciting, it's not hip, it's not fresh, but not having those in place is detrimental to the downstream experience that your provider has. So I want to say we try to be innovative, and I love it, and we always have that bias for action and innovation coming through. But those fundamentals and foundations allow you the time to explore the new technologies, the new features, having those foundational processes in place.
Can I jump in on that a little bit too? Because I think this is something that we had a department that was really struggling, and over the period of 18 months, I think had 16 offer declinations, and they kept saying to our leadership, we have a recruitment issue. And I finally stood up and said, we actually don't have a recruitment issue because we've sourced and got you 18 providers to the offer stage. So that's telling me that we have an on-site interview process. And this is where we really did a lot of training and employee value proposition, because we realized that, they weren't doing a good job at selling that at that final stage. And so we spent a lot of time training them on how to do an on-site visit properly. And I think to Barb's point, this is so critical. It's a foundational skill. And sometimes we just get nonchalant in how we do that. Our recruiters are responsible for selling that high level in EVP on the community and on the organization. And our department chairs and our leaders are selling it at the department level. But each person who interviews that candidate, they sit there, tell me where you trained, tell me why you want to come here. And really, we're not interviewing them, they're interviewing us. And so we had to go in and kind of help them understand, what it meant to really interact with a candidate. And we had to help them learn what's your EVP? We have a lot of longevity. You've been here for 10, 12, 15 years. Why do you work at Dartmouth Health? Why do you stay here? Well, now you need to be able to articulate to the candidate. And then we would assign each person, okay, you're going to talk about clinical studies. You're going to talk about, the unaccredited fellowships, and you're going to talk about this. That way, that candidate's not sitting in a room doing the same spiel over and over again. And once we helped them define what an exceptional on-site interview day looked like, it turned it around, and they hired 6 physicians in the course of a year. And it really changed the name of the game. So I think sometimes we forget the foundational aspects to recruitment, what they look like, and we can be influential people in helping them to turn things around and figure it out. It doesn't have to be some sexy tool or sourcing or investing and spending more money on marketing, right? It can be those foundational pillars that can really drive success in recruitment. And that's what we're taking into this new year too.
Yeah, just one thing, because I know we're close on time, but it's about the experience, right? I mean, in a world of healthcare where we focus on the patient experience, where we focus on the employee experience, the same thing goes for the candidate experience as well.
Yeah, I think the thing I love about this is that it's, control what we can. Obviously when it comes to budget, we have no control over that, but we can control the candidate experience. And so I think that's a great focus. Also, from the recruiter perspective is to focus on the impact you're making, not only on the system, for the people that we recruit and bring in. It's such an important role. So not to lose sight of that, and the recruitment stresses that you're making such an impact, and the impact that you can make on your candidate, just by going above and beyond with their experience, to set yourself apart from the competition.
100%. I love it. And we've had a lot of conversations that led up to, hosting this panel with each of you guys today. Some key takeaways that I've also heard is just the relationships, back to basics, right? One thing that I love that I think collectively we learned over the course of getting to know each other electronically in the last week or two is just in your role, you have the opportunity to make positive impacts. You are influencing your team by growing, developing, certainly new providers, but also your community. All of you have a different mission and an effort, and you're serving different populations. And so each of those are tied to business outcomes, but they're also tied to success. And that looks very different for all of us. But I just want to thank you so much for sharing your stories, your initiatives, what you're focusing on, what you've learned from, right? And it's not always perfect every day. And we do have to struggle with budgets and all the other things that come our way. So appreciate your time. Again, we'll have a full recording of this. If you need anything at all, don't hesitate to reach out to us. But I wish you guys a great rest of the day, week, and 2026. Hopefully I'll see you at upcoming shows soon. Thank you again. We appreciate your time. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.